I'm Dr. Noone. This is Dr. Chun. We're both psychiatry residents. We're going to be talking about mental health aspects of the surfing community. All right.
Surfing community, that's awfully specific. Why surfing community, Logan? What's going on?
Well, look, I was really motivated to highlight this topic because of a recent interview I saw with Kelly Slater getting interviewed by Joe Buck. So let me show you something.
Wait, who are these people, Logan?
Well, if you don't know who Kelly Slater is...
I don't.
You really don't know who Kelly Slater is?
Yeah, I don't. Culturally, I'm a moron. A surfer, right? I'm gonna take a wild guess here. He's a surfer.
I don't even want to do this podcast with you anymore. but I mean, Kelly Slater is the GOAT. He's won the world title in surfing more than anybody else, and he's not only the youngest but also the oldest to ever win the world title in surfing.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Arguably one of the greatest of all times.
So like the LeBron of the surfing world? Is that fair to say?
LeBron of the surfing world. He's also been voted like one of the most beautiful people.
So he can do it all.
He can do it all.
Oh, man.
Great segue. It's almost like you knew I was going to bring up this clip. Okay, so window this. Okay.
Yeah, let me see a picture of this guy. Let's see how beautiful this man is.
Well, you're going to see. So for context on this portion of the interview.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Is that him? Yeah. For context and portion of the interview, he is discussing in like 1992 or something. He had already been a pro for a few years, already won like a couple world titles at that time. He signed up to do Baywatch. Okay, and then I'll just let this play for about a minute.
I was broke, literally in debt, and I lost a world title, and sort of everything went south that year.
Right.
It was just one of those years, like the year before was like everything was great, you know. And then that year was just like, God, everything is a bummer. And I just had a really tough year.
Did you feel like you'd let people down, like the people that had made all those sacrifices, your mom? Did it get that deep where you felt like you were failing them, or was it just you?
No, it was just me, personally. I mean, to be honest, I've never really talked about it publicly, but I was basically kind of suicidal at one point for a couple of weeks, and in early '94, and I was just so sad and so depressed, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and I was just, I don't know how else to describe it. That's.
If you're that low, something has to happen to pull you back out of that.
Okay, so that's really, I don't want to play the entire clip. But I greatly encourage the listeners to go check out this interview. It's about 50 minutes long. Joe Buck, one of the greatest sports announcers, interviewing Kelly Slater, as I explained to you earlier, the greatest surfer of all time, arguably. At least the most decorated, competitive surfer of all time, we could definitely say. So, Joon, now that you're a little more educated about good old Kelly Slater here, how do you react to him sharing his suicidal thoughts?
Okay, so I'm gonna pick out a little detail that stuck out to me, and I'm gonna let you highlight the main issues, Logan. So the thing that stuck out to me was when the interviewer was asking him about, did you feel like the pressure of other people? Did you feel like you let other people in your life down? Honestly, I expected him to say yes, and it was kind of surprising to me that he said no. And I almost question if there's, if that's maybe kind of a superficial answer. And what I mean by that is, like how many times have we heard that from our patients? I feel like especially the young people that I deal with, they always tell me, like my mom, my parent, my dad, they expect this and this from me, and it's impossible to meet these goals. And that's the reason why I'm so depressed. That's the reason why why I'm anxious. That's the reason why I don't want to go to school. So the case in point here is that I think we have to realize and be kind to ourselves because we don't live in a vacuum, right? We're human beings. We're social creatures by the nature of our birth, right? The minute we're born, we have a mom, we have a dad, we have grandparents, maybe we even have siblings or cousins. We're born into a community. And nothing that you do is independent of the other influences in your life. So maybe that was Kelly Slater's way of kind of taking some of the pressure off of himself. But a person that feels no pressure from their community, from their parents, I'm not sure if that's actually possible, if you know what I mean, Logan. What do you think?
I actually don't know what you mean, because, what Kelly explained earlier in the interview, and I think I just also have a better and different understanding of Kelly Slater, right? I, of course, knew who he was prior to this.
Right.
I watched this entire interview. I was deeply vested into this. He talks a lot about how his mother came from poverty and how his surfing career was able to greatly get them out of poverty. I don't know how much of him agreeing to go on Baywatch was purely influenced because of finances, but I gotta imagine it was a reasonable portion. So I think what he was referring to there, like he didn't feel necessarily pressure because perhaps he had already financially won.
Accomplish those goals. Okay.
What I really look at is, look, whether it was a superficial answer or it wasn't, like it truly doesn't matter. This person is at least opening up and sharing suffering. And I feel like we all can relate to that concept and experience of suffering. And I'm not going to say we all, but a lot of people unfortunately have experienced what we psychiatrists call suicide ideation, what Kelly Slater is describing. I'm so happy Kelly Slater, to my knowledge, never acted on any of these impulses, hopefully engaged in some kind of therapy or support. Who really knows? And it was able to heal. But what I am just so impressed with, so proud of, is his ability to share this suffering. This is someone who, from the Facebook perspective, right? The social media perspective, this perspective we have of him through fame as, one of the greatest surfers ever. Like he has it all. He has all these millions. He's so athletic, so beautiful, so talented, all these amazing things. And for him even to share that experience of suffering, I think is vital. Jeez, can't even talk.
Vital. There you go. I agree with that, Logan.
A long Friday. And, I talk about this a lot, acceptance and commitment therapy, and I think Kelly Slater is an example of this, right? Like he is part of the human condition is going to be having that disconnect at periods of our life with the way we're living, not living to our true ideals and having that kind of confliction that we live with and perhaps that experience of depression. So I'm just so happy that someone like Kelly Slater is opening up about his suicide ideation. And I think that this is going to motivate a lot of individuals outside of just even the surfing community to hopefully engage and help as well.
Yeah, Logan, I'm glad that you highlighted that because, we do live in a very superficial society today, right? We kind of just scroll through a person's Instagram, look at all the physical things that they have, the materialism, the career accomplishments, and we formulate our own perception of how that individual must be feeling on the inside. But it seems like over and over again, we're, shown these examples that what looks incredible from the outside, that individual might not necessarily have the same kind of perception. And Logan, we were joking about this earlier, right? When we started this episode, like this dude is a beautiful man. He's rich. He's athletic as hell. He's a world champion, the envy of many, many, many individuals, I'm sure. And at the same time, like the lows have been so low for him to the point, that he was starting to have suicidal ideations. And I think that just speaks to the peaks and valleys that we go through in life. And sometimes those peaks can become too high, as in, in the case of mania. Sometimes those lows can get too low in the terms of very severe depression. But I think this example just highlights that it is to a certain degree a norm of the human experience to go through extreme highs and also the extreme lows, and those lows don't define who we are as people, right? I think when we're stuck in that moment of extreme lows, we kind of get this false perception that this is what we're trapped into, this is our destiny for the rest of our lives. But over and over again, the examples of the people that we look up to so much in our society have shown us that despite those lows, there's a future, right? There's further positivity down the line. And that just reminds me of the question that we ask all our patients, right? The concept of being future and goal oriented. What are you looking forward to doing? Like when you think about the future, do you feel hopeful or hopeless? So getting an individual in the midst of that depression to see that there is a hope on the other side, to see that this is a limited time and it's not indicative of how the rest of your life is going to be, is tremendously vital, as you put it.
Right. And it's funny, you bring up highs and lows. It made me think of this movie I actually wanted to bring up, another surfing movie, Andy Irons' Kissed by God. And so Andy Irons was actually one of kind of the rivals in the 90s of Kelly Slater. And actually in that interview, Kelly Slater discusses kind of this strange relationship he had with Andy Irons. Where
Did he dominate him?
They went back and forth. You know,
they went
they
back
were
and
really
forth?
at the
Okay.
top, and he in a sense had like a brotherly relationship, but also kind of like that rival. They didn't really like each other at the same time. Andy Irons lives with bipolar disorder and
Oh.
unfortunately died. You know,
Oh,
and so this
no.
movie, Andy Irons, Kissed by God, really discusses Andy Irons' experience with bipolar disorder and also addiction. Beautiful movie. I strongly encourage, I think anyone who, even outside of course people who appreciate surfing, I think would enjoy this movie.
Was it suicide?
Honestly, I can't even recall. I can't remember if it was a suicide or a drug overdose. Um,
Gotcha. And those things
but
are really hard to differentiate at times,
right.
just given the nature of drug
And
overdoses.
perhaps it is known, but I can't remember offhand. And truly, it doesn't even really matter in a sense, right? But what I do remember is this movie is incredible, and I think it's an incredible display of bipolar disorder and addiction, and also some beautiful surfing shots. To really highlight another movie that's bringing out mental health in the surfing world is a movie I recently watched on Amazon Prime called Facing Monsters. I really think everyone should check this out because it is dramatic from a film perspective. And what I mean by that, you know, this Western Australian surfer, Kirby Brown, is going after these waves that are the scariest looking waves I've ever seen in my life. You know, they're 50, 60 feet tall, slamming onto these rocks in really shallow water. And this guy is a wild man. And I don't want to give away any of the ending, so I don't want to say too much of it, but he really kind of discusses his issues with substances, his challenges with addiction, and how surfing was both a therapeutic but also kind of a harmful aspect in his mental health journey. And I don't want to say too much more. I highly encourage you guys all to watch it. If you like the show, I think you will like that Facing Monsters.
So, Logan, 50 to 60 feet wave sounds incredibly dangerous. What do you think it is about surfing and sports in general that draws individuals to take these kind of risks?
Right. You know, let me share the Kelly Slater quote I wanted to. So one of Kelly Slater's most famous quotes is, "Surfing is my religion if I have one." You know, I'm an extremely new surfer. I started surfing in like May of last year. I've only been surfing about 18 months, and I am a god awful surfer. You know, I'll hop out in the water, and you know, I'm one of the worst ones out there. But I truly have a blast. And, you know, what drives me to get in that water is in a sense like there's this concept in Mexican culture like Niños Santos, which means sacred children. And it's like having that ability to play like a kid. And I feel like that's what surfing gives me. It makes me feel like a child. Like I have no other cares, no other worries in the world besides not getting wrecked by that X wave that is coming in. And, you know, I think everyone can relate in certain ways to surfing and how it impacts their mental health. But specifically for me, you know, we work as psychiatry resident physicians right now, right? And soon to be psychiatrists in a little over a year. One of the challenges I have with this job is how hard it is to detach from my professional work and live a normal personal life. And what I mean by that is stopping thinking about cases on nights, on weekends. I find hopping in the water is one of the most easy ways to detach my brain. I wonder if that's what drives other surfers into the water. If it has, I bet it does that same kind of therapeutic impact on their brain. So whatever kind of, and all those movies that I was highlighting kind of talk about this, like how demons that these individuals live with and how surfing was an escape. Perhaps a dangerous one, but it was still an escape nonetheless. Because I think it can be so overwhelming and stimulating and exhilarating that it can be therapeutic. I would also argue spiritual. A few weeks ago, I finally caught what's called a green wave. And what that means is you get up on the wave and you kind of like trim the side of it and kind of go along the wave as it's breaking, riding it down the beach, carrying it with speed, doing a little bit of turns and stuff. And I've really struggled. I'm kind of a, you know, obese man a little bit. I shop in the husky section. So surfing's been very hard. And I wasn't on the right equipment either. I finally get up on a wave, catch one of these badass waves, I turn, finish the wave. I'm chilling, waiting for the next set of waves to come in. And a pack of like 5 or 6 dolphins pop up out of the
Oh
water
my
like 30
God.
feet from me. It was the most exhilarating moment of my life up there. It had to be. And in many ways, like it was like a spiritual experience for me in some ways. Like I don't attend church, but like that experience, that moment being out there, like was a spiritual practice for me. And that's kind of what when I heard this quote from Kelly Slater, that's kind of what made me think of. And I quickly, I think this could be a whole nother topic, and maybe we should do a whole nother topic on it. But let's briefly, in 2 or 3 minutes, talk about how I do think it's important for all of our patients to at least engage in some kind of spirituality practice, whatever it means to that person. For you, perhaps it means something quite different. For me, I would not call surfing my religion, but I think movement in nature is maybe my religion. Getting out skiing, getting out hiking, that is my spirituality. That is like my nature. That is my church. And that is how I get in touch with something higher than myself.
Yeah, Logan. So you're calling it spirituality. I'm also interpreting it as just being here in the moment, being present. And it reminds me of, look, I used to watch a lot of videos about rock climbing, right? And rock climbing, like free soloing, El Capitan, some of these incredibly high walls that are thousands and thousands of feet. And of course, if you mess up, you fall to your death. And the people that engage in these extreme sports, interestingly enough, they also describe it as a spiritual experience. And when you hear them expand upon it, they all talk about just being up there, thousands of feet up in the air, knowing that one move can essentially lead to your death, and how that kind of weight puts everything into focus, right? They're so focused on where their feet are going to be placed, the texture of the rock underneath their fingers. Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it cold? Is it too hot? Will it break if I put my fingers in a certain angle? So just being absolutely present in the moment. I think that kind of spirituality is something that we as human beings try to capture, because at the end of the day, like, what does that really mean? It's peace, right? You're at complete peace with yourself. You have no other thoughts, and you're only focused on the task at hand. And especially with all the information that we have today, all the distractions that we have, the cell phones that we carry around with us, peace is becoming more and more rare, and it's becoming higher and higher demand. So maybe that plays a role in these people that are seeking out these so-called extreme experiences, so that they can so that they can essentially detach themselves from society and just get back to what it feels like to be alive, to be a human being without any of the other distractions in this world. So maybe that's that play as well.
Right. Well, look, I'm very proud of the surfing community for having at least these 3: the interview with Kelly Slater and Joe Buck, the 2 movies, Facing Monsters and Andy Irons' Kissed by Gods, I think are some of the highlights within the surfing community. I think analogous to that ski resort episode, the surfing community is similar in some ways. A lot of individuals unfortunately engage with a lot of substances like partying, and that culture go very closely with surfing, of course. And so I don't know if there's any suicide rate data on the surfing community. Perhaps I'll do a follow-up episode on that, but I really wanted to highlight these 3 positive examples of at least mental health in the surfing community, or at least somewhat positive, I should say. The Andy Irons movie, of course, is very sad, as we discussed earlier. Great episode, Joon. Had a lot of fun. Thank you guys for tuning in.